Hello? Yes. Oh, hang on.
Mate, I can hear you. I can't see you yet.
So, hang on. Oh, there's the button.
Jolly good. How are you anyway? How are you feeling after your fight? You fully recovered?
Mostly recovered, mostly recovered. Haven't got back to full training yet, full contact, but yeah, back in the gym, going as hard as I can for the minute. And yeah, things are good.
Good. Please hear it. Well, thanks for coming on. Um, yeah, we'd love to know what possessed you to decide to take on a grandmaster. What were you thinking?
Well, I mean, as the as the title holder, you have to take all comers, don't you? Yeah, that's the role of a champion.
Absolutely right.
You
Absolutely
take on
right.
you take on the number one contender, whoever that may be. Anyone who puts in front of you, any day, every day. So
That's the
yeah,
spirit.
yeah.
That's the
Simon
spirit. That's the
Williams,
Minotaur way.
absolutely. Simon Williams wanted to meet me in the chess boxing ring, and I cannot turn down such a challenge. So on the show go went.
So how aware were you of Simon? Because obviously he's a public figure. Were you aware of him before you took the fight, or had you been following him for a while, or what was your awareness of him?
Yeah, so it's a the story goes back quite a way actually. Um, at the time of recording, I'm not sure we recorded a podcast episode that hasn't actually gone out yet, so I might be rehashing things that eventually come to the fore. And I apologise if I'm repeating myself. But yes, so when I started taking my chess properly seriously, which was around about 8 years ago, when I was in my final year of university. Simon Williams, the Ginger GM, it was one of the first big chess YouTube channels at the time. Sort of the YouTube chess scene hadn't fully formed at that point, and he was one of the bigger guys. And his swashbuckling, aggressive style really captivated me, made a big impression on my chess. And I've tried to carry that spirit as best as I can in my own games. I mean, at the time I was playing, I was an English player. I was playing c4 with the white pieces on move one, which anyone who's watched any of my chess boxing fights knows that those days are long gone now. Um, and yeah, Simon, he was one of the big inspirations to change my style, and it served me very well. So yes, I was more than aware of Simon's chess prowess coming in. I've been a fan of his chess for a long time, about 8 years, as I say.
You and Simon strike me the kind of people that you play chess to enjoy it. Like you're not playing chess for the sake of it. You want to go out there and do some swashbuckling. You want to have an aggressive game. You want to
Yeah,
either win spectacularly or lose spectacularly. And I think aside from it's what we want in chess boxing. I mean, it's just what we want in chess. Is it? I mean, we want to
yeah,
enjoy the
absolutely.
game.
I mean, it is. I mean, it is a game at the end of the day. It is and as a spectator sport, you have to provide some kind of entertainment. And seeing the 17th iteration of the Berlin defense and the Roy Lopez doesn't exactly get the spine tingling, does it? And I
Yeah.
think a lot of but the major thing I think in the very tippity top level of chess isn't a lack of there's no lack of ability. Obviously, they're incredible. There's no lack of preparation. They put tons of effort into their openings. But I think there's an unwillingness amongst the very, very best chess players to take risks, take big
Mm.
risks, and really put on the line. We're going to win it all, or I'm going to lose trying, and I'm going to try and provide. I like to look at my games as that every single time it's an opportunity to produce some kind of masterpiece that I will one day be able to bore my grandchildren with. It's just have a look at this. Have a look at this, children.
Yeah.
This is what I could do back in my day. This is what I was capable of.
It's
And
interesting though. Do you think that's born out of the nature of tournaments? Because I know you're not a big football fan, but the basically Gareth Southgate's England team in the latest
yes,
Euros, and in fact all of the major tournaments, the reason he has done well is because he plays tournament football, which basically entails playing very, very boring football, very, very defensive, and if you get a goal, then that's great. You probably win that game, and if you go a goal down, then you change your style, and then you try and go out and get an equalizer. But basically, that expansive type of strategy doesn't really work because you only have to lose once and then you've been knocked out.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't think that's entirely fair of tournament tournament settings. Like, so the most famous football team probably ever was the Brazilian national team of 1970, who were renowned for playing incredible attacking football, and they won the World Cup, absolutely crushing everyone. I mean, they won the final 4-1, an absolutely crushing performance. So it's not that it can't work; it's that it's a high risk. So if you look at the type of tippy tappy high possession football that the likes of Guardiola promotes, it's the reason that that's become so prevalent, I think, is because they're trying to control as much as possible.
Yeah.
Football, I would say, in the same way as boxing, football's kind of a high risk sport because there aren't many goals. Goals are quite rare, and so one goal is massive. Similarly to boxing, you take one hit and it changes the fight completely. Football has that kind of jeopardy to it, and so in order to be successful over a long stretch of time, a lot of people try to minimize the risks and maximize the control, and that's why Pep comes undone against his teams have had a rather poor record against teams that create chaos
Yeah.
because then that's the way to get around this control. So it's almost like a counter style, to be honest. People try to play their safe passive chess or football or box, on the back on the jab or whatever it may be. I think people in general are quite risk averse, and they like to try and stay in their comfort zone, stay in their lane, and try to make things as comfortable and as easy as possible. But if you just go in there and just take an axe to that and just come out swinging, then that's actually the best way to deal with them because the surprise really affects people. Even in another completely different sport, in tennis, look at Novak Djokovic, an incredible player, and the best thing that gets him off his game is the unexpected. I remember I think it was a game in 2015. Roger Federer attacked his second serve, just basically charged at it as he was taking a slower serve, and just appeared at the net. And Djokovic was so stunned by this, he double faulted. Like, I never double faults. He's metronomic, but he was so just stunned by this thing he'd never seen before. The panic sets in, and that can affect anyone at even at the very top levels of any discipline. But the human emotions are still prevalent, and you can take advantage of that. And I think aggression is the best way to do that. People don't like risk. People don't like, a lot of the time when you give people the big moment, they don't step up to the plate. They falter and they wilt. And you can, by being authoritative, you can seize the day.
Yeah. So at the risk of getting into the bout itself, because I do want to talk about your preparation, but do you think chess boxing was a leveler in that regard? Because I mean, the way the bout played out, I'm pretty sure that no one would expect Simon to play, to blunder his queen. So do you think in that sense, the chess boxing was able to level the playing field to an extent in terms of you matching up with the grandmaster on the chess?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. I mean, I play Simon and chess over the board, and I'm going to be optimistic and say I lose 95 times out of 100, and maybe I'll swindle a couple of draws. Get because he's at the end of the day, the man is still human. He does make mistakes, and if you look at his live streams, he does occasionally get over ambitious and will put himself in a bad position. And that happens to even the very best of people. But yeah, in the context of chess boxing, it's a completely different kettle of fish. Like, there's one thing playing tournament chess or even playing blitz chess in the evening when you've had a few pints. It's a completely different setting to when you're breathing heavy, you're exhausted, you're under the lights, you've got an actual physical crowd. He's used to playing to an audience, but having a physical crowd is a different experience. And obviously, I've had some experience in that now, which he hadn't up until our bout. So yeah, there were certainly things in there that did level the playing field for sure on the chessboard.
And this was your third fight, I believe. Is that correct?
Yes, indeed. Yes, number 3.
So did you change your preparation given that you were fighting a grandmaster? Or, I mean, obviously there's a couple of things. Obviously he was his debut as well. Um,
Yes.
so did you change your preparation based on the fact that you were fighting Simon?
I mean, the only two sort of specific preparations that I did were I drilled a few boxing combinations I thought would be useful, um, given my knowledge of his lack of experience.
Hmm.
And a couple of days before the fight, I went on his chess.com account. There's a fantastic resource called Opening Tree where you can input someone's account into it. And they come to every single game they've ever played. So I
Yeah.
was able to analyze 13,800 of Simon's games
Oh
for
my
black
God.
pieces. And so as a result, build a bit of an opening repertoire specifically for the fight. Other than that, I mean, my approach was as normal. Go for the kill as fast as possible on the chess and the boxing. And yeah, hopefully have an early night. That was the plan.
So, ladies and gentlemen, this is the kind of level of detail that committed chess boxer will go into. He'll be using all 853,000 openings that Simon's done
Absolutely.
in his career to work out what the optimum opening is. Um, so obviously you were white, so you got to choose the opening.
Yes.
I understand that you chose an opening that you were familiar with.
Um, Sort of. So I decided I knew Simon had one data point to go on with me of the white pieces at least, which is my previous bout with Dave Germany when I had
Hmm.
the white pieces. And I'm an E4 player through and through. So I decided if he's gonna have any sort of plan to upset the apple cart, he's gonna look at E4 and come up with something aggressive there. That's what I'd expect. So I led with D4 instead. Um, knowing that Simon is he likes to play the Dutch defense against that, which is and Simon plays a delayed variant. He doesn't play F5 straight away, which you normally do in the Dutch. He plays E6 first, which allows a transposition. Because the Dutch is an opening I respect. It's quite solid. I used to play it a bit. Yeah, it's a nice aggressive weapon against D4. So yeah, can recommend the Dutch. So I played E4 as my second move, transposing back into the sort of stuff that I know, which denies the Dutch defense, which is what Simon's known for, and gave him a choice. Now, the choice I was expecting him to make actually didn't happen in the game. His what he'd been playing, my research suggested in the week before, leading up into the fight, is he'd been playing a second move of B6, which allows a transposition into one of my favorite lines in all of chess, which no one will ever have heard of. It's called the reverse Leela Zero Gambit. And I know for a fact that in Simon's 18,000 chess games that I'd looked at, 13,800 chess games that I'd looked at, by move four, he would be out of book. And I was very hopeful for an absolute masterclass and total domination on the chessboard. But unfortunately, or I suppose fortunately, depending on how you look at it, he chose to transpose into a French instead, which was a bit disappointing in that we were going to have a game of chess, which in a position he was kind of familiar with. But on the positives, it is the French defense, and I don't respect that, so I had a slight edge. And from there, I didn't want to play my usual stuff of the Milner Barry Gambit, which Dave Germany was on the receiving end of, because again, I thought he would expect that. And also, Simon's written a course on the Milner Barry Gambit, which I actually have on Chessable. Yeah, so I've got the must confess I've got the short and sweet one that you get for free because I'm a cheapskate. So I apologize,
Mm.
Simon, for that. I apologize. I've managed to scout his opening repertoire without paying any money for it, which is very cheeky of me. But yeah, so I knew he was familiar with this opening because he'd written a course on it. So right, I better avoid this. And it was a suggestion of my chess coach, a lovely young lady by the name of Nino Komariki. It's a very, very strong Georgian player. She normally is just permanently disappointed in me and my choice of dubious gambits. But on this occasion, actually suggested one that she'd played in tournament chess, which is the line that we ended up going into, which Simon said he wasn't familiar with in your interview, which I've watched, where I give up the pawn on d4. I believe it's called the Ruidonk Gambit, but other people know it as the Nimzovich French. I have no idea what the difference is, but on Lichess it's known as the Ruidon Gambit. Daniel Naroditsky calls it the Nimzovich French. I'm not really sure, but actually, yeah, she recommended me that I play this mildly dubious gambit, and it isn't great. I mean, I wasn't. It is known to be slightly odd, slightly off color for white.
Okay,
So if black plays perfectly, they do have a slight edge. But it was tricky at least, and made him uncomfortable, and it did get him to slow down. So I suppose on that front, it was a success.
yes, I think he admitted to playing more slowly than he was hoping to. And how did you? So obviously, eventually he castled, and then he had this
Yes,
mobile pawn center.
yes.
How did you? How concerned were you about that, and how do you think you dealt with it?
I think I spent a little too much time debating alternatives to just playing Queen takes d4 and getting a pawn back. I never enjoy accepting material, and I think obviously my
You'd rather
previous
give it away,
bout
wouldn't
with
you?
yeah, well, my previous bout with Dave Germany, where I accepted a pawn and almost immediately threw my chess advantage in the bin, has pretty much scarred me for life on taking anything whatsoever. I mean, yeah, was such a horrible experience. I don't wish to repeat it. So I'm always very careful when taking any material to double check that it's poisoned now. So yeah, I spent a bit too long on what could be considered the natural move, and then I was quite happy with my position, to be honest, but I underestimated the speed at which he could get his pieces coordinated. I think I overestimated the grip I had on the position, because to start with, my pawns are blockading my pieces are blockading his central pawns, but slowly he's able to maneuver his way out,
Mm.
first with his queen to c7 attacking my rook after he's traded the bishop for the knight, and then he's able to get his knight to the center hitting the bishop. There was one other thing I missed after, so I played c4, which, yeah, I spent a while debating on that or whether to develop the knight, trying to just chip away at his center. I played c4. He responded with c5, kicking my queen, and I should have just swung it all the way over to the king side, I think,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and just stayed on him. But
Mm.
instead, I played a slightly passive move, dropping it back and keeping it on the e file.
Yeah, I
That
know.
was that
I
was
think. Yeah, I think there was. So we're going into the first boxing round, but I think you're right. I think later on in the chess game, that queen being across in front of his king would have been beneficial in terms of
yeah,
defending his attack, but also
yeah. I mean,
your because your knight wasn't developed, and therefore your rook wasn't
no,
developed, and actually
yeah,
that
that was the
also
major thing.
contributed, didn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, that was the major thing. Develop your pieces. That is the pro tip. Pro tip from chess. Make sure your pieces are developed.
I mean, I have to tell you, Matt.
Yeah,
As you know, you're a much better chess player than me, but I thought the chess game was great. Like, there was no question of whether you were out of your depth in any way. I actually thought it was pretty even, and it was actually very interesting and very dramatic. I mean, we'll get onto some of the drama later, but
mm.
it was, you're coming up against grandmaster, and you're completely, nip and tuck with him on the chess game. And then
Mm.
obviously you enter into the boxing, which is more your arena, or certainly you expect to have a bigger advantage because you've got more experience in the chess.
Yeah.
Sorry, in the
Against
boxing
Simon, certainly.
against Simon, and you've got a slight reach advantage. So
Yeah.
what were you thinking, like that first round of boxing? What was your strategy? I mean, I appreciate you want to put pressure on him, but how did you do that?
Yes. Well, actually, I should give a big shout out to Cam Little, former heavyweight chess boxing champion, who was my corner man for the night. Unfortunately, no one in my from my gym in Salisbury could make it in the end. But yeah, Cam was cornering me, and he did an absolutely superb job throughout on yeah, warming up beforehand, advice during the fight. He was brilliant, absolutely brilliant. So yeah, the game plan was fairly simple. I know Simon had some kind of martial arts background, but not done any boxing. So what I was expecting from him was good a nice, good, stable footwork, um, and an ability to, and a decent understanding of distance and ability to defend himself. I was
Mm,
expecting him to be a tough guy, but sort of uncultured in a way, boxing wise. And in the end, he turned out to be roughly what I expected, with a couple of small differences. The first one being he actually had a very quick, sort of snappy jab, which I didn't expect. He popped his jab out almost. He hit me. He hit me before I hit him. But when we met at the start of the first round, and I did not expect that at all. He had a very quick lead hand, which was able to catch me at long range, and then I didn't see coming. Uh, but yeah, I hadn't factored that in. But the other thing that did surprise me though was his power. So I would expect him to be really trying to sink shots in and make them count. Whereas he was throwing more he was focusing more on speed than power, just letting his arms go, but without really getting his body into it.
mm, mm-hmm.
And as a result, anyone of around sort of 16 stone can bang, obviously, but he wasn't putting his weight into every shot.
Mm.
And he seemed hesitant to commit. And as a result, because I'm used to fighting big bruisers. As a heavyweight, you've got to deal with massive 6.5 foot mountains with big muscles coming forth and blasting hooks at you. So when I felt Simon's power, I thought, okay, this I can deal with, and I felt very comfortable closing the distance and letting my shots go instead, which is, I mean, that is how you get caught in heavyweight boxing, to be perfectly honest. Uh, letting your guard down, thinking, yeah, I can take these shots. That's how you get caught. But in the actual boxing as it developed, it did work for me.
Yeah, I thought. Obviously, I've watched it back a few times. You're right. There was a few times where he exchanged jabs, but I think well, I did ask him in the interview, but it felt like he was drawing you onto him, and then he did land some hooks and some uppercuts, some inside shots.
Yeah.
But the first, I mean, I guess it's typical in the first round of boxing, you're kind of feeling each other out, and it didn't seem to affect you too much. I mean, he caught you a
No.
few times.
Yeah. Oh no. I definitely got hit, but it
Mm,
wasn't with anything so substantial that it actually forced me to
yeah.
back up. I was always, but even when I did get caught, I had to sort of have a word with yourself. It's like, don't take too many risks here.
Mm.
Don't be sloppy. But I wasn't scared by his power in any way. I never felt uncomfortable.
I mean, maybe it's
Which,
making that
yeah.
transition from sparring to a fight, because you can throw arm shots in sparring because you're not
Oh
trying to
yeah, yeah.
hurt
But
somebody, but
it's
actually it's using your body weight and your core, which
yeah.
is going to create some
Mm.
power. And perhaps that's something that Simon can work on. I
Yeah,
also
maybe.
thought he kept a very high guard, and he
Yes.
accepted a lot of punishment to his body, which he didn't seem to
Yeah.
bother him at all.
Well, you say that. So yeah, his God was very disciplined. Very disciplined.
Mm.
But you say it didn't bother him. I know he mentioned in the interview he did with recently he was doing 8 rounds of sparring. That's hard work. 8 rounds of sparring in a row, that's really hard. So he was obviously training for it. Obviously his stamina was, I mean, your stamina has to be there if you're going to be doing that sort of training. But he'd slowed down so much
Mm.
in by the end of that first 2 minutes, and by the end of the second 2 minutes, he's his legs haven't gone, but he's not the activity. He starts off throwing really some quite quick hands inside.
Mm.
That all disappears by the second round. And whilst he may not have sort of felt the initial thudding pain from the body shots, it is a bit of a delayed reaction. I mean, I like to think I can take a body shot as well. I can take a decent hit downstairs, but it does sap the stamina from you. So I do think, because that's my favourite shot, the left of the body that I got him with a few times in that
And he
opening
was
round.
leaving it open. Like he
Yeah,
was very
yeah.
high in terms of guard, which
But
I
I
don't know if
think
it's necessarily a bad tactic, but he
no,
was
not
leaving his body
necessarily. I mean, it's a trade-off. All things are
open.
trade-offs. There are no solutions, only choices. So that was what he chose to do. And yeah, the result of that effectively was his loss of stamina. You know, it's not gonna drop you to your knee. Not many people can drop people to their knees with a body shot, especially again when you get to the big men at heavyweight. It's very difficult to drop someone off a body shot, but it does really take the sting out of you. So I think that was a large part of why he slowed down so much, was the body shots. Even if he may not have felt them in the moment, that would have been what was sapping his stamina. So I think it was I was pretty pleased with my approach, and also that it did seem to pay dividends in the end.
So obviously you did knock him down.
Caught him in the first.
Yeah. So talk us through that. How did that manifest?
Well, again, as I say, he was starting to slow up towards the back end of that first round, and did keep it very, very disciplined.
Yeah,
high
you were
guard,
coming round a lot.
I was trying to come round, but I was still connecting with his guard rather than cleanly through, and it's difficult. You know, even with my sort of power, it is difficult to break someone with their guard up. You can sometimes, if you've got like bowling balls for fists, like
Toby White can do it.
You can just smash someone's guard, and even if their hands are up, they're still taking so much damage that you eventually break them down. I don't have that kind of stopping power. But where I caught him with the hook was that was the one time he dropped his guard. He dropped his guard to try and catch me with an uppercut. And if you look back at the footage, that's the one time his hands dropped because he's trying to throw something. And I get my hand in the gap as he's throwing. I catch him first. And that's how I put him down. It was a counter punch rather than brutal force that put him down. It was actually a counter shot. He was trying to throw at that point, and it was one of the very few openings in that guard, because you say he was very disciplined. But yeah, I caught an opening there right at the end. I think that was pretty much bang on 2 minutes, I think.
So let's go back to the chess. So I mean, there's no doubt about it. I mean, and Simon admitted it. I mean, it's no secret to anyone, is that your chess game is affected by the boxing.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I mean, even if you're dominating in the boxing, you know, you get tired. You know,
it's hard work.
So we go back to the chess game. And how did that then develop? Because it was a very exciting sort of development. I think it might have been actually after the second round of boxing, but
yeah, it was after the second round of boxing. All hell broke loose on the chessboard.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's just like a couple of moments really that sort of illustrate the gap in quality between myself, and I consider myself a pretty solid chess player. But you know, there is a golfing class between one of the best players in Salisbury and one of the best players in Britain. And there are a couple of moments that did show that. So as I say, I spent too long on recapturing the pawn, basic paranoia about taking.
So even at this point, the clock was starting to. You're concerned about the clock?
Yeah, well, I mean, small margins make a big difference. Small margins make a big difference. So every little advantage that you put together adds up to a win or a loss. You know, and it was small differences. Someone was moving slightly faster, slightly more accurately, and I didn't swing the queen over to the king side. And Stockfish will say there's a marginal difference, but there is a difference. And other small decisions. But the big one in that final chess round was straight off the bat. So Simon's now coming forward, he's on the attack, and I missed a crucial move, which was developing my knight to d2. That would have kept the game in a roughly even kill, because it was fairly close at that point. Black's got a slight edge because of my vaguely dodgy opening that I played, but it is still pretty tight. And it's absolutely imperative in chess to develop your pieces. And I failed to do that. I made a miscalculation, tactical oversight. I didn't think knight d2 worked, and I completely failed to see the back rank problems that Simon was threatening. just totally missed it.
So
And so
just to slow down a little bit. So what happened was, Simon brought his queen across onto your king side, threatening your
yeah,
bishop,
yeah,
but
it's attacking the
also
bishop, which is undefended.
but also threatening to bring the queen down to the background,
Yes,
and basically checking your king.
yeah, delivering a
Now,
devastating check. Yeah,
did you see both threats at the time, or just the bishop?
no, I only saw the bishop. I completely missed Queen C1
Which
check.
I
It
mean, I
was
think I did as well.
totally
I
off my
was
radar.
by this
Yeah,
point. By this point, I'd ironed out all the technical problems that I was scrabbling around with the
yeah.
first two bouts. So I was actually able to watch this, and I saw the threat on the bishop. I did not see the background at
No,
all.
I mean, it's an appalling oversight, honestly. From
No,
a player of my caliber, that is abysmal. The fact that I failed
but
to miss it.
all the
But you come
commentators,
up,
and bearing in mind we had a
yeah,
women's international master commentator, I don't. They
yeah.
all missed it too. So I
Well,
wouldn't.
it's yeah, but you come off your round of boxing,
Yeah.
adrenaline's pumping. Sit down on the board. So, right, what am I doing? Right, bishop's under attack. I need to develop my knight. Can I get away with that? No, that doesn't work. Well, I better defeat the bishop then. Oh no, I've lost the game. And I did genuinely think after Queen C1, oh, that's all over. And I felt like such a
So you thought it
moron.
was
It
checkmate. So
just,
when he checked your
yeah,
king background, you thought that was
yeah.
it.
I thought that was it because I saw I can block with my queen, I can block with my rook, and it's all over. And but so, yeah, you can see I rock back and applaud. I applaud myself more than I think for being such an absolute moron and getting myself into this situation. It's just like, oh, well done, you idiot! You've done all this effort and you blunder a simple black rank tactic. You absolute dunce. And then after it took me about 20 seconds to sort of get my wits about it. It's like, right, hang on, do I have anything here? And yeah, turns out I can sacrifice the rook to then defend the check with my queen. And obviously it's totally lost. Like the game is in the bin at this point. It's all over, and it's just a case of me versus the clock. And I looked at the clock to see how much time I had left versus him. And I've got 4 minutes to get through. And so right, well, this is a holding job. And then literally the next move, he sacrifices his queen. Out of
Well, he didn't. No, he
absolutely
didn't
nowhere.
sacrifice it. He blundered it.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think what he was trying to do was rather than trading the queens off and going into a slow end game where it's possible I can hold on for the next 3.5 minutes or however long it would be, I think he was trying to take the B2 pawn, exploiting the undefended rook. And then because if he manages to play queen takes B2, he then wins either my knight or rook, and then it's completely dead. So like just there's less than no hope.
Well, I also think he wanted to keep the queen on because he wanted to finish it quickly.
Yeah.
With the queens
Yeah.
off, it could grind on for several boxing rounds. I'm not sure.
Exactly. Well,
That was in
at
his
least
interest
one, at least one more. I think if he played fast enough,
Yeah.
he would have been able to convert the position very quickly. But I can make use of my time and get in one more round maybe. So I think that's what he was doing. He was going after the rook to make it like totally decisive. But yeah, in his haste, he just placed it on the square where my knight could take it.
I mean, it was a
I
great
think he said
moment,
something.
honestly. As a
Yeah. Oh, it's
sporting moment,
mental.
it was fantastic. No, I
Yeah.
mean, I'm sure Simon won't mind me saying that because it just made the whole thing so dramatic. It was incredible.
Yeah. I think you mentioned something about his vision being affected. I know I caught him with a few jabs, so maybe one of his eyes was starting to close a little bit. I'm not entirely sure what was going on there.
I
But he did
think
mention
it's
something
just.
about his
I think
vision.
he just got some dust or some grit in it from the boxing gloves just through
Oh, right.
contact.
Okay.
I don't think it was a swelling issue, as far as I mean, it didn't look
Right.
like it
Okay.
was.
Well, then I don't know. I'm just
Yeah.
positing possibly. But again, like even there, when you're as good as Simon, you can literally play chess with your eyes closed. So the fact that he made that mistake,
So
obviously,
at this point, did you think, oh, I can win this?
yes, absolutely. I mean, I've got a queen. The thing is that even though the queen's gone, he gets a knight for it, and then yeah, he gets a knight for it. I've already lost a rook, and one of my pawns is going as well. Because actually, when his knight takes my knight after he's lost the queen, he then gets the pawn. So actually, material is still completely even. So even though his queen's in the bin, it's not trivial. It's actually quite a tricky. It's actually quite a tricky position, even still. I mean, in a proper game, don't get me wrong, I'm taking white 100% of the time, but it's still not over. It's going to be tough for me to convert this, especially given the amount of time that I had left. It would be a tall order to convert that. But yeah, make no doubt, I'm better here. I am now better, and I was all eyes are now on his king. I'm going to go get him. So I played a
but
really
also
disrespectful checkmate and one threat, and I'm going after him now.
but there's also a momentum shift, isn't there? You know
Yeah,
that
completely.
yeah. Suddenly
Yeah,
you're dead and buried, and suddenly you're back in it. And
back in the
not
game.
only is he reeling in the boxing, but now he's
Yeah,
kind of reeling to
yeah. The
cope with
chess
it.
is
The
it's
chess.
all
And
yeah, it's all to
you can
play
almost
for.
see he almost moved a lot of his pieces backwards because he was like, oh God, I can't. I need to make sure that I do this properly, and I can't
Yeah, I mean
afford to make another blunder.
the one I was very surprised by, sort of aspect of the game that I was surprised by, is that his queenside rook never got in the game.
Mm.
Even again, like there's develop your pieces, people. The chess boxing podcast listeners, this is the one thing you should take from the one piece of feedback you should take is develop your pieces. It really makes a difference. But yeah, he left his queenside rook all on its lonesome over on A8, which
Mm.
was, I mean, a real help to me because it's something I don't have to think about. Yeah, that's 5 whole points of material out of the game, which is a welcome sight. So I was all of a sudden putting pressure on his king rather than the other way around, which was fantastic.
Yeah, so we're basically we've gone through a very dramatic period in the chess, and now we're back in a game that is fairly evenly balanced. I'd just like to step back though and talk about the boxing because obviously you knocked Simon down.
Yeah, in the
And
first round, yeah.
yeah, and he looked. I mean, considering being knocked down, I thought he looked okay. Like, I mean, it's hard to say
Yeah.
from the side.
He looked like he taken it fairly well.
Hmm.
But yeah, he obviously was because it was right at the end of the round. Also, he had the full 4 minute chess minutes to recover.
Hmm.
So it was 6 minutes effectively from taking that shot to actually taking anything again, which was a fair bit of time to recover. So by the time he got back in the ring, he had he'd certainly fully recovered by the time he was back to boxing again.
But before the final round of chess, you actually managed to break his nose, didn't you?
Yeah, it was
What happened there?
that was the what the stoppage was for, wasn't it? I
Yeah,
think
that's right.
medical timeout. Yeah. So well,
Did you know which shot it was, or was it just
I
something
have
that happened over
absolutely no
a period
clue.
of time?
Looking back, I think the one it might have been was in the second round. I got slightly cheeky, and in order to try and split his guard, rather than jabbing my way in, because I was trying to do for most of the time, I should mention also that during the first round, at some point, I smashed my hand up again.
Mm.
Much like I broke my thumb on Dave Germany's chin. I did something when I was against someone. I think must have been clipping his elbow when his guard was up. I think I must have caught his elbow in that first round. When I went back to the corner, I was like, I've done it again. So in that second, when it was starting, I was relying on my left hand to get most of the damage through.
Mm.
And I got a sort of slightly cheeky idea when he was backing off, and rather than leading with a jab, I sort of almost leapt into a right cross, which he didn't see coming because I was so far out. And that was one of the few shots that's pierced through his guard and got his head. So it might have been that one, but I'm not sure. I don't know.
I know you weren't aware because obviously I wouldn't tell you this because it would be unfair on Simon, but he broke his nose 3 or 4 weeks before the fight. And
yeah, I know he said afterwards,
yeah,
that he'd had it broken before.
And I've obviously organised quite a few bouts now, and whenever somebody texts you saying they're broken the nose, you straight away
It's not good
panic
news.
stations. I'm like, oh
Yeah.
God, this is it.
Mm.
I'm gonna have to find somebody else to replace him. But I have to tell you, I mean, I've never broken my nose. Simon doesn't seem to think it hurts very much, but you've got to take.
He rated it as a 2 out of 10 on the pain scale, didn't he?
Yep.
I mean, that gives you an idea of how tough the man is.
Exactly.
It's just like, broken nose. I do this every Tuesday. It's fine.
Yeah, and I just think it's worth, giving him a bit of kudos for just saying,
oh no,
fine, I'll carry on.
Yeah, honestly, that man. I mean, taking a fight with the champ at all for your debut and breaking your nose beforehand and going on with it. honestly, balls of steel, that guy, and
Yeah.
fair play to him. He was tough in the ring as well. He was tough. He fought his heart out. You know, he was game. He kept plugging on even after being put on the floor. He was kept coming, kept throwing. He wasn't all passive. And actually, one thing I do want to say about Simon's boxing, because I know people will watch and think, oh, Minotaur's all over him. What's he thinking going in there with a younger guy? Is hope absolutely no hope whatsoever. Technically, Simon's a much better fighter than it came across. His footwork was solid. He had a nice snappy jab. It technically was much more professional than I was expecting. And you can see that if you go back on the if you go back and watch the fight, you can see his footwork is very, very good. He's got a good bait. He's got a good base. His jab's very quick. He's got fast hands. The only real problem that he had in there was purely the lack of stopping power to keep me off. I mean, and I am a pressure. I fight like the stereotypical sort of Hollywood big man of just the coming forwards. Yeah, I am the stereotypical Hollywood villain who gets beaten by the plucky smaller fighter who lights him up with speed and guile. And yeah, that's how I fight. I've got a sort of slow plodding cadence, and I drag people down to my level with body shots. That's pretty much my fighting. But yeah, Simon obviously had trained extremely hard, and yeah. Tough man, and honestly, fair play to the lad. He fought very, very well and was very game throughout.
Yeah, you obviously didn't follow his training as I did, because obviously I saw him start like 4 or 5 months ahead, and I did spar him a couple of times, and I could tell that he had the basics, like he had the footwork, he knew how to move, he knew to have a guard.
Yeah,
but obviously he was very unfit, which I'm sure Simon would admit to himself, but he was very slow as well, very, very slow.
well,
And
yeah,
I saw him develop over time. And the last time I saw him spar in Fulham, like, it was night and day. Like, he had improved so much. And actually, he didn't. He what he said is true based on the sparring I saw. I don't think he fulfilled his potential. Like, he is actually a slightly better boxer than you saw. But having said that, his performance was a hell of a lot better than when he started. So,
yeah. Well, I wouldn't expected him to be giving his best, to be perfectly honest, because when you are under the lights, it is more difficult than it is in sparring, just psychologically. And also, 8 rounds of sparring, that's great, but 8 rounds of sparring when you're under pressure is very, very different. I mean, I like to get in people's faces, and I don't like the pressure being put on me. I don't like the shoe being on the other foot. There's a guy in my gym he's a pressure fighter, and he's better than me at it. And it's exhausting trying to fight him for 2 rounds.
Yeah.
2 rounds, I'm fighting 3-round fights. I like to think that I could go tomorrow, and so it's having someone in your face. It does make it much, much more challenging, and it's more difficult to get your distance. And if I had given him time, fought at a slower pace, let him get his rhythm, I think it would have been a completely different kettle of fish. And that was part of my game plan, was to go in and impose my fight on him to make sure that couldn't happen. Because I expected him to be actually a competent boxer, and I didn't want him to get a chance to show that.
So let's just go back and finish off talking about the chess game, because it's such a great game. We need to do it justice. So Simon's incredibly blundered his queen.
Yeah.
He sort of retreated slightly, and now you're fairly well balanced on material. But Simon's got this pawn center that's chugging towards your back rank. So what are you thinking there? What's happening?
Yeah, well, Simon basically tries to set up a blockade with his knight and his rook. He tries to set up a sort of blockade in the center of the board, rather than going totally passive, which is, I mean, he's a better player than me. It's a very sound decision and presents quite a challenge. And I've got to now try and chip away at it. That's why I bring my rook to c1. That's why I fire up and take the pawn on the c file. I'm trying to dig away at his position now. But yeah, the problem becomes the running B pawn. And with the limited time that I had left, again, this is a difference between myself and a quality grandmaster like Simon, is that speed of calculation. I've not got so long on the clock, and someone much better than me would be able to see what I need to like that and immediately figure it out. But I see the running pawn, and it immediately occurs to me that my queen and the queening square for the pawn are on a knight fork. And so, right, well, this cannot be allowed. I can't allow this to happen. But so I have three options to deal with this in my mind. Option number one is just simply pull the queen back to B1 and try to take the pawn with my queen, which is fine, but it's very passive. And because I've already made a mating threat with my queen and bishop, I'm really kind of wedded to keeping that queen on the king side and just walking it in to H7, G7 and announcing checkmate and feeling like a genius. So I really didn't want to retreat my queen. Option two, which is the sort of Neanderthal approach, is just take the knight with my rook, sacrifice the exchange, and just take away the threat. And this would lead to an exceptionally complex endgame of two rooks versus the queen, which I basically took one look at and thought, oh my God, there's no way in hell I'm defending this. That's a disaster. So that leaves me with one left. And I was really proud of myself for coming up with the idea. So I can intercept the pawn with my king, get in, move the king up. It defends the square the knight's coming to. He's got nothing. I'm a genius. So off the king goes merrily on its way, gets to the square where it's hitting. The knight can't produce the fork. I am so clever. And he keeps advancing his pawn. He keeps advancing his pawn. It's like, it's fine. It's all in hand. I've got this. He's clutching at straws here. King on to E2. I've got this covered. And then he promotes. And then I'm like, well, why has he done that? I just take. Oh no. Oh no. And it suddenly dawned on me just how stupid I am. And I managed to blunder the game twice. In one game of chess, I managed to blunder it away twice, which is very, very poor. And yeah, from that point onwards, there's nothing. And for the rest of the game, it's just me scrambling to try and avoid checkmate, glancing at the clock, trying to calculate in my head, have I made it? I thought I had. It keeps going. And then it's just like, oh no, have I got my maths wrong? I need to survive for a whole another minute. And then it's just absolute scramble. And I didn't make it. I'm absolutely devastated.
I mean, it's not an impossible question to answer with any certainty, but did you think that if you could have lasted through, do you think that last boxing round would have made a difference?
Well, yeah.
You would have had to knock him out, wouldn't you, basically? Because you were going to lose on the chess.
Well, to be honest, Gavin, I know you won't like me raising this because you were battling technical challenges throughout the night. Obviously, the primary one being the sort of third world quality infrastructure we have in the UK regarding internet. But there were a couple of, I do feel slightly aggrieved with a couple of timekeeping errors on the night, shall we say. Chief among which was in the second round of boxing. 40 seconds was taken up with the medical timeout. And traditionally, I think one stops the clock while that's going on.
Yeah.
But as that didn't happen, I was deprived of 40 seconds there. And then there was a bit of a shenanigan at the start of the second chess round when the board came back to us. The clock was on my move, and I was very confused about it.
I think that the rocker must have been knocked as they took it out.
I think it must have, because I did. Again, I looked back at the footage because I thought, oh my God, I've not pressed the clock. I'm so stupid. But looking back, I did press the clock, so it should have been. So it must have just got knocked between the rounds, which is sorted out very quickly by Carmel.
Are you just going to list all the things we've done wrong then?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. But that was a precious few seconds until it was so close to getting that third. So, I mean, I think really I should have had another. I should have had another 2.5 minutes.
You're right. It's a shame that it affected it so much. I can't deny it. I mean, there were things that went wrong.
But the thing is,
if you tried to show me a Chessboxing Nation event where everything goes perfectly correctly, I'd call you a liar, frankly. It's,
Well,
it's
no, I mean, to be
uh,
fair, I thought the last one went extremely smoothly. But the
yeah,
anyway, the point being that given the extra boxing round, do I think it would have made a difference? I like to think I'd have got him out of there in that time. But
mm,
it's not cut and dry by any means. I mean, anything can happen, especially in heavyweight boxing. And if you want to ask anyone about that, I'll just ask Deli Martins what can
yeah,
happen in heavyweight
yeah,
boxing. You
yeah.
know,
No, I mean,
I'm
I think we do owe you an apology because I think the mistakes that were made. I mean, it could have, they were genuine mistakes. They could have
yeah,
benefited your opponent as opposed to you, but actually, it did make it hard for you. I can't deny that.
yeah,
I can only apologize. At the end of the day, we have a team, but it's my responsibility. I was producing an event, and the buck stops with me. So I am sorry that those things happened. Having said that,
yeah,
I have to say you're an incredibly good sport, and it was an incredibly entertaining bout. You can't get
yeah.
away from how dramatic the whole thing was.
Yeah, I mean, the last chess round especially it's completely mental. Probably one of the most ridiculous
Yeah,
chess rounds I would imagine in anyone's seen in chess boxing. You've got two queen blunders, one from each side, a mate that isn't actually a mate but is still fatal. Just
mm,
absolute chaos. The clock pressure, everything. Yeah, the high drama it certainly provided. But yeah, as regarded these things, the time could be these things do happen. I remember in there's a famous boxing fight, George Foreman versus Ron Nile from the 70s,
mm,
where Foreman's all over his man, and in the second round they stop it after 2 minutes rather than three, and Lyle survives and then puts Foreman on the canvas the next round. So these things do happen. You've got to as an athlete, you've got to take these things on the chin. Fundamentally, it's what your performance inside the ring that counts at the end of the day. That's the only thing you can control. That's the best. That's the only thing really that matters. Because at the end of the day, it's a spectator sport. We're providing entertainment more than anything else, and
yeah.
yeah, we certainly did that. I think I'm certainly very proud of my performance, and I'm sure Simon is too, and he should be because it was a brilliant night actually.
Yeah, and I think in fairness to Simon as well, I think I think he's told me that he would like to fight again, and he would like to
Yeah,
offer you a rematch because, yeah, I mean, A, it was incredibly entertaining.
mm,
B, I think there were some wrinkles in terms of timekeeping and stuff that he realizes that did benefit him and did make it more difficult for you. And I think he feels like a responsibility to give you another go where hopefully those things won't affect
yeah.
the outcome. If it
Well,
did,
obviously, I'm happy to take him up on that offer. Obviously,
yeah.
so anytime, anywhere, let's go.
And yeah, I mean, obviously you heard the interview, but outside of that as well, I know he's got a lot of respect for you.
Hmm.
For
Yeah, we had a good
what you did. Yeah,
yeah,
you had
we
a
had a
good
good
chat
chat
afterwards, I
afterwards.
think.
It
Yeah,
was
did you? Do you
yeah,
have
it
a
was
pint?
great. Yeah, also played an incredibly degenerate game of chess. He played the King's Gambit. I played a counter gambit. He refused to accept that and gambited some more. It was it was appalling chess,
Yeah,
but absolutely brilliant fun. And I did manage to get a draw off him with no boxing involved, which I'm very proud of.
that's
Very,
great.
very pleased with that.
Yeah, I think
So
you're kind
yeah,
of brethren in terms of chess, aren't you? The way you approach a chess game is quite
yeah.
consistent
I
between you.
stand by. It's the right attitude to have towards the game. I stand by it. That's how chess should be played.
Yeah,
Uh, because life's too short for boring chess. You know, why would you spend? I spent the last tournament I was in. I spent 8 hours defending losing end games, and life's too short for that. You just go in there and just bludgeon them. And if that doesn't work, well, at least you tried. But I, also, aggressive chess just works. Like you don't have to play rubbish in order to play aggressive chess. There's an amazing game I saw earlier this week, which was compute from the computer chess of Stockfish versus another engine. The name escapes me, but it's 3,500 level chess in the Evans Gambit, and White wins. And so it's there's still I am 100% on the 20th century chess was a mistake. Steinitz was wrong. Anderson was right. That's how you should play chess. Balls to the wall, straight off the bat, go for the kill immediately. And that's how chess should always have been played. The 20th century was an aberration. And we're learning now from the neural network engines that that's actually how chess should have been played all along. Romantic chess was always right. And there we are. That's it.
And I think that's why you found your sport, and why, chess boxing is your home.
Yeah,
and why we
100%.
love you. That's why we want to watch you compete, because you bring the entertainment wherever you chess box. So thank you for that.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much.
Another very entertaining bout.
Yeah, I try my hardest. You know what you're getting. You know what you're getting when the Minotaur gets in the ring. All action.
Absolutely, absolutely. So Matt, yeah, thanks again for fighting. It was epic. Thanks for taking on, a grandmaster. Can't ask for more than that, really, can we?
Honestly, it was an honor. It was a genuine honor to fight the guy and meet him in that order. Yeah, superb. Loved it. It was a despite the terrible loss of my title, and I'm genuinely devastated. Yeah, it was a fantastic night. I really, really enjoyed it. And tell you what, actually, the cider and the ginger beer as well, it was on tap. It was really nice as well. Very welcome after a few weeks off the booze. That was fantastic.
Well, we should shout out to Wildcraft Brewery, who were running the bar.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
And of course, the event was on Worcester Estate, so thanks to them.
Yeah.
Now we've got we're planning another event in a new venue. It's quite exciting. We're just sorting out the licensing. We've got a date, which is the 17th of December. Seasons Beatings 24. Now, if you want to get tickets for that, you'll need to follow us on social media, because they're not available just yet, but they will be soon. Also, if you enjoyed this podcast, if you enjoyed watching Simon fight, you should go back and watch the full event, because there are some fantastic bouts. Not least the third bout, which includes a knockout, which is obviously very dramatic.
That was a very interesting one. I do have a technical piece of breakdown on that fight, actually.
It's such a shame we didn't see the chess play out on that.
It is a shame we didn't see that. But yeah, it was all over in a flash. But what was really, really shocking was how quickly it happened, and also where it came from as well. Because in that first, it looks, obviously, if you were to watch that round, like Dharma was smashing Delhi to pieces, but actually it came from Delhi putting him in the corner inside the first 10 seconds. Like, he actually backed him up into the corner, and what happened was Diamond dropped his hands looking for something, and Delhi's seen the opportunity and lunges in with a big right hand, overcommits, shifts his right leg forwards so he's completely square rather than his normal stance, completely squares up, bash, 2 hooks, and that's all she wrote. So that's how quickly things can go wrong in heavyweight chess boxing. Yeah. That's how quickly things can go wrong.
I mean, they're both amazing people. They're both amazing chess boxers, so entertaining.
Oh yeah.
I have to tell you that Dimer, he's not, he's very wily. He was waiting for that moment. He'd obviously identified Delhi overreaching, and he was waiting.
Yeah. Well, he told me beforehand. I remember a few weeks beforehand, we were training together in Islington, and we were taking each other on the pads, and he was chatting to me and about his upcoming fight. And it's just like, I've seen Delhi. He's a brawler. He's not a boxer. Like, and I just looked at this guy thinking, oh my days, this guy's in for a rude awakening. Like, honestly, I feel sorry for this guy. Like, Derry's going to tear him up, and he comes out, flies into a right hand, and gets caught. And I was in the back room just getting more. I was barely through my skipping when Ursula comes through. It's just like, right, you're on now. Hey, what's happened? It's just like, no, Delhi's been knocked out. What? I was just could not comprehend.
It wasn't. I mean, he has a different style, but it was kind of Mayweather. You know how Mayweather stands, and he just holds his right. He just waits, and he waits, and he waits, and he waits, and he waits, and then when he sees the chance, and it felt a little bit like that. It
was exactly that. It had a slightly lower lead hand. There you go, open for the shot. Delhi overcommits, and bang, that's all she wrote. Job done. And then from there, I mean, maybe if Delhi had, after that first knockdown, maybe if he'd have sort of circled and jabbed and tried to clear his head, he might have been able to survive. But it's so easy. Once you've been knocked down once, it's so easy to make a mistake, you know, try and prove something to your opponent, and just and once if you go down twice in a round, that's almost always curtains.
Yeah.
So you've got to be.
He had no other gear, did he? He had no other plan
Yeah,
other
exactly.
than dominate.
Exactly.
And at that
Yeah.
point,
You see,
yeah, it was over.
he popped up after like 3 seconds as well, which again possibly a mistake. I mean, again, if you look back, I hate to do this to the guy, but it's just going to kick my ass next time we're sparring when I say this. But
well, he's in your weight class.
Yeah, I know. But when you look back at my fight against David, when I got put on the canvas, I took the full 8 and came up at that point. And just taking that time to breathe, compose yourself, makes a huge difference when you're trying to see out. Because at that point, when you've taken a hit like that, you just need to survive the round. Just forget trying to put yourself back into it. You're surviving the round. And yeah, Deli's, you know, while he's very intimidating, you know, when you do get caught with something like that, you have to find that sort of humility to step back. It's okay.
Yeah.
I've got to go on the defensive now and look after myself. And yeah, it's difficult to do.
Well, you know, shout out to Deli. What an entertainer.
Oh yeah,
he's definitely
absolutely. Yeah, honestly,
entertainment.
Yeah, both of them were brilliant fun all weekend.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, but both of them. Yeah, they were fabulous to have in the sort of the chess boxing gang of all the fighters. Both of them were really big personalities, and yeah, huge fun.
So if you want to see that fight, go to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/chessboxing. You can also see Cheyenne versus Martin. That's a fantastic bout as well. And who doesn't want to see Mr. Beef versus the Porn Slayer? I mean, that was quite a way to open the show. So go and check those fights out. Make sure you subscribe to our channel. And like I said, follow us on social media. We're going to be announcing ticket sales for our next event in London shortly, which we're very excited about. So, Matt, I'd love to stay and chat to you about all the bouts, because I think we could do it all evening. But
I mean, the first two were very competitive, weren't they? Pretty close, both of them. But yeah, lots to say about all things chess boxing.
And maybe we'll have to cover it in another podcast. But thanks very much for coming.
I would love to.
Just wrap things up now, and hopefully I'll see you in the gym at some future point.
Absolutely, yeah. I'll be back in. It won't be too long before I'm back to find my way back to Islington. So yes, I'll see you soon, Gavin.
Lovely stuff.